Hi, I'm Darren Long from Delta Harbour Assets, and this week's Hard Money Podcast. An interesting topic. How much wealth are Canadians going to lose as real estate prices continue to drop? And how can we offset that by changing our wealth strategy and owning physical gold and silver? Let's talk more about it and what RBC had to say and how much wealth they expect Canadians will lose by end of 2022. This and a lot more coming up right now on Hard Money.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey, welcome back. Hard Money Podcast. You're on it. We're on it. Let's do this. The number 1-877-323-GOLD. Why do you call that number? To reach out to Darren and his crew and figure out how you should get some physical metals into your portfolio if you haven't done it already. We always say yesterday was the best day. Second best day is today. So get on that. We're talking physical gold and silver, not paper, not ETFs, not hypothecated shit. We're talking the real gold and silver you can actually pick up, drop in your foot, and head off to the ER. Other than that, store it. We're going to talk about all the different ways to keep those precious metals on your person and otherwise where it's safer for very little cost, but that's later in the show. Darren, want to talk about lots of things today. You sent me an interesting article. Let's expand on it, pal. What do you got?
Well, welcome to the show, everybody. And once again, absolutely a catch-up week because lots has been happening and lots going on in the gold and silver markets. However, I will say that we've still got opportunity, and it is knocking left and right, front and center for both gold and silver. And as we're taping here today on Friday, we're seeing gold trade in a range of 1640, with silver down just a little bit on the day at around 1910. Those are U.S. dollar figures in the paper market, and both demand has for both gold and silver has been very strong over the last few weeks since we've last spoke to our audience. And ultimately, yes, there is more allocation happening at the mints. So we are going to get into an article today talking a little bit about the economic side of what we're following in terms of how it influences gold and silver and decision-making for people that have the money to invest that would otherwise not want to put the money into the bank or into other paper assets that sometimes don't make as much sense as they used to. And John, the world is a funny place right now. It's very fickle. We're watching this entire bout of inflation unfold before us. We know now that the wool is being pulled over our eyes in terms of wholesale pricing. We know supply chains have caught up in many places, and in others still are dragging their ass. But ultimately, what we do know is that wholesale profit margins are rising, and they're rising because why would wholesalers want to effectively give in to this notion that inflation is really biting their bottom line? It is in some respects, but if you look at the wholesale inflation index, you're seeing that wholesalers are managing to keep their pockets well lined with profits, and that profits in many places and many centers around the world are still rising. So the picture that's being painted through headlines and through other bullshit media outlets is one that suggests, yes, there could be recession going forward. We know that that's a falsehood. We know if recession is basically here. We know the largest portion of our market, one of the biggest contributors to GDP in Canada, which is real estate, has fallen off a bloody cliff. We're going to talk about an article today. And we know that gold and silver are two assets which have performed very well during recessionary periods. Now, whether you own it for insurance, whether you own it for speculative reasons, whether you own it just to protect your family, or whether you feel you need an asset at your disposal in your hands at home, there are many reasons to own gold and silver. If you're listening across Canada right now, we just got off the phone this morning with an individual who called because they had their bank account frozen.
What?
During the Freedom Rally. Again, whether you're on one side or the other, it's irrelevant. It shouldn't matter. They decided to take a paltry $25 and they wanted to support a cause they believe in.
Wow.
And for that, they had their bank account frozen. This is a young couple. They are in the oil fields, and both are working and met in the oil fields. trying to make a life for themselves, left the East, came to the West to make that life for themselves, and never dreamed in a million years that their own government would go after their assets and freeze it, pay their bills, pay their taxes, pay more than their fair share of taxes because they are above average earners. And both of them have come to their wits' end in terms of what's happening. The bank gave them no insight. The bank refused to cooperate with them, and it froze their main account, which means payments were missed because of the freeze, which meant they couldn't access funds for a matter of time. And that freeze took not 1 day, not two, but more than 5 days to deal with. So for 5 days, their lives were frozen shut. They couldn't get money out, couldn't do anything until that release was let go. And this is just, again, a growing number of problems that are rising out of this discussion they're having about the use of power. And again, this is the same age-old discussion we've had time and time again, that gold and silver represent a way for you, the individual, to be your own central bank. And this is one of the reasons we've said over the years, gold is savings, silver is savings. We've talked about the central banks owning gold and silver around the world. Why are they buying gold and silver if it's not of value to them? Why are they telling you to buy the shitty paper assets when you should be owning the physical gold and silver assets, the ones like we offer at Delta Harbour Assets, at least as a balancing mechanism in your wealth strategy? So yes, John, as we sit here and tape on this Friday, I like the buy ranges for both gold and silver. Be cognizant of these bastards in the paper markets who toil with these markets day in and day out, who make profits on the shoulders of hardworking people by manipulating prices. Just look it up, the bastard traders that come out of some of the banking institutions in the US and around the world who have spoofed the gold and silver market. They're keeping a finger on this pulse, watching very closely. But I like the setup right now, John. I like where we're heading. As we've talked about on recent shows, we've just ended a 40-year bull market in bonds. And that market is certainly playing itself out right in front of us. I think most analysts are trying to project a story which suggests the stock market might be okay, which suggests that these interest rate hikes are not going to hurt everything. Again, the spin put on this week's interest rate hike in Canada, a 50 basis point hike, was, well, hey, it wasn't 75 basis points.
Yeah, as expected.
Yet, if you are paying a variable mortgage or a variable rate mortgage or a variable line of credit of some sort, a HELOC or otherwise, your payments have doubled in just the last couple of months. And that's real money out of your pocket. So what was budgeted to be once an affordable payment for many is now not an affordable payment.
Yeah.
We just had a report this week that suggested last month was the highest demand month for food banks across Canada. And again, 1.5 million users across Canada, which marks a historic high and a very sad situation. As many of you may know from listening to this show, at the end of many shows, we talk about the importance of taking care of your local food bank, and giving to your local food bank. But John, the all of the ingredients don't add up to a good recipe. There's just too many things that are sour in this recipe, and it's just not making sense for me. I think something is a brew here. I do think that the stock market is very much capable of a tremendous downside. I do feel that going into the end of this year, that gold and silver look very, very good from a buying standpoint. I like silver better than I like gold personally right now. That being said, I do always and have always maintained that silver is the more undervalued metal of the two. But I think that you need to look seriously at what your wealth is doing for you and ask yourself the question if you feel wholly comfortable with what's lying ahead of us in terms of an economic outlook globally. And that's, again, why we bring up this article today. So, John, this article is from Better Dwelling. And the title of the article, our friends over at Better Dwelling wrote, "The Canadian Real Estate Wealth Boom is Over."
Wow.
Okay, well, duh. We've talked about it several weeks in a row. Not such a creative headline, but certainly if you're just reading it for the first time, it's over. It says RBC has now touted that there is going to be approximately $1.6 trillion in real estate loss. And it stems through every walk of life, John. I talked to, just before we started the show, I mentioned that I spoke with a relative of mine who bought just a number of months ago at the very peak of a market, made a life decision to just move into another subdivision, bought a house, and feels as though he has now lost approximately 160,000 in
Yeah.
value in his house already in just a few months. He sold at the very top end of the market another type of property he had, so hopefully he balances out there. But this is the story being told all over Canada, and it says in the article here that RBC Economics warned investors this week, and this article is posted on the 27th of October, that the housing fueled wealth boom is coming to an end. Hello, RBC, you're a little fucking late to the game, but anyways, better late than never. Last quarter showed the biggest drop in net worth on record, largely due to a housing correction. In the coming quarters, says RBC, they expect to see net worth erode even further, causing households to pull back on spending and delivering a larger hit to the economy. Well, John, what is the largest single contribution made to a growing economy? Ding dong, consumer spending, right? If consumer spending slows the way we expect to see it slow and the way it has already begun to slow, where's the incentive to fill the shelves again, right? What's the common story now? People go shopping right now and they're seeing a shelving that's empty. They're going into the Walmarts and seeing half the shelves are empty. There's no impetus there if consumers aren't spending to fill those shelves back up. So this is an important time to pay attention to your wealth, because for the life of me, I can't understand why, but we remain very passive, John, very passive as Canadians. And ultimately, when we look at this boom, this Canadian real estate boom that occurred since the onset of the COVID pandemic, it sent household wealth soaring, and it drove a massive amount of wealth gain for many people, especially speculators in home values. I mean, across the board in Canada, soared something like an average of 52% in like 36 months. In some cases, the value of a house nearly doubled. And it drove about a 3.9, almost $4 trillion increase in household wealth over the time of the pandemic. Now, rising interest rates, a looming recession, these are both contributors to the expected recession that we're about to see. And ultimately, it's going to have an adverse effect on those gains. So yes, we want to own gold and silver because these are assets that work inadvertently on the opposite side of these types of situations. Historically, we have seen gold and silver perform dramatically well, especially post-recession.
Well, I mean, to your point, kind of like related to that article, Darren. I mean, I had lunch this week with a very extremely successful real estate friend of mine. I won't name his or her name, but they've got dozens of brokers under their wing. So they've done very well. They know this market better than anybody I've ever met over the last 30, 35 years. And they even said, to your point, with this knock up in interest rates for variable, yeah, it's doubled. So if you were paying, even if you were reasonably comfortable with paying $3,000 a month for a mortgage, your mortgage now is looking upwards of $6,000. There is going to be a massive run of foreclosures in the next year or two. They're calling for, and banks going to have all these properties. Now, banks, when they flip that, when they sell these houses, they have to get 2 appraisals by law. I didn't know that the bank has to get 2 appraisals, and they take the highest one, and that's what they're going to sell that house for. But when people don't have the money and they don't have the down payment and they can't handle the interest rates, it's going to be. And if you're a renter, God forbid, like you've been saying for months, if you're buying that investment property, you told people months ago, don't do it right now. If your mortgage on a rental property has gone up, if it's doubled, it's gone from 2,000 to 4,000 or 4,000 to 8,000, whatever a month, you can't double your rent to make up for it. So now that rental property is costing you money and you're losing every month. It's a nightmare. To your point, it's a nightmare in the next few years what's going to happen as far as real estate in this country, and people are just going to get hosed. So yeah, you got to look for other safe assets. To your point, gold and silver, get some physical metals into your account, man. It's really scary what he was talking about when we had lunch. Thank God I have a little teeny mortgage, and I bought 17 years ago, and I have no other investment property. I've always been too chicken shit to do it. It was probably a good move in hindsight. I'm going to wait a few years to even go down that road, man. So there you go.
I think it is. I think you're right. And I don't listen, as a Canadian, as somebody living here who has speculated on real estate, I liquidated the last of my holdings in the spring of 2020. So, or 2021. And ultimately that was a tough go because one of those properties was very close to me. It was a property my family has been in my family for 100 years.
Yep.
And it was the end of it. But we got something that was extremely crazy. I mean, I just don't understand why people would have paid that. And now I would guess that the value of that property has dropped 150,000. Maybe they're lucky if they can get that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, yes, this is a huge decline. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and RBC came out and said that it was reported all over the country, but the quarter 2022 in Canada decline in real estate reduced net household wealth by about 900 billion, which was the single largest quarterly decline in the history of Canada. And the bigger are, the harder they fall, John. So looking over the course of this year, RBC predicts that there could be a total loss of about $1.1 trillion.
Insane.
And they expect that if a recession hits, the retracement will be potentially, and again, this could be a conservative number, about 41% of the wealth gained since 2020, or about $1.6 trillion loss, which is a big pullback, which means you're getting very close to rolling back to what your pre-COVID values were. And I see it in my own community now too. I see the number of houses for sale, and competing competing prices have to go lower in order to attract a buyer at this point. And that's why I suggest anyone listening to this video right now, if you have money to put into disposable assets, or to assets that will complement your wealth strategy, or you have disposable income coming in on a quarterly, yearly basis, bonuses, whatever you have to put out into the market, think twice, right? I mean, not every penny has to go into something like precious metals, but think twice. And the fact that it can go into gold and silver still at these relatively low prices, I mean, it's a godsend, John, because it means that these particular markets are going to do what they do best, which is to rally when times are at their worst. If you look at 2008, when the global financial crisis hit, and many countries were moments away from complete bankruptcy, and some, like Cyprus and Greece. And European places, they were in shambles, and still are to this day. I don't know why people don't report on it anymore, but it is still the case. Ultimately, they were lucky to get away with still having some asset base there. But I'll tell you, this is an international story, real estate in Canada. And I did myself a little favor coming to today's show, and just to show you, because so many people that I've talked to, especially real estate agents, oh no, there's not a lot of foreign demand or foreign speculation in Canadian real estate. And I always said, bullshit. That's complete bullshit. I talk to people every day who have relatives who have bought and were part of an investment, who had hush money that were brought into other accounts where their relatives here invested in real estate for them. So I did a little test. I looked up Google this morning, and I typed in expected 1.6 trillion in losses, and I said, okay, couple that with a look and find and a search for the most recent change to the foreign tax for foreign buyers, which this week Canadian government, or Ontario government, said they're upping it to 25% as a tax for foreign buyers. And the very first article that comes up is an article from India Times. So it's not an article that's domestic, right? So Google's not telling me, hey, the search demand for this is outside of our country. It's outside of my IP area. And that's a scary thought, because that tells us that it's alive and well, that people around the world, from the BRIC nations and other emerging economies up until this point, were paying attention, and we're investing heavily in real estate in Canada. And why not? If your money is worth more here in our country, that's one of the most developed countries in the world, that's one of the best places to live in the world, why wouldn't you take advantage?
Yep.
Where else can we go in the world where the Canadian dollar is worth a lot more and live a comparable living standard? Pretty much nowhere. I mean, we can have something on par in places like maybe Australia or a couple of places like that, but outside of that, we don't have the same access to health. We don't have the same access to consumer opportunities in terms of spending. We don't have the same ability to use disposable income for the enjoyment of what our families do here. We just don't have the same standard of living elsewhere in the world, anywhere where our dollar can go and be of more value. So this is a scary thought, because this has to change. This entire situation has to change. If we're a country that's deemed of value to live in, then our currency should be worth a whole hell of a lot more than it is, because it must deter, not encourage people to abuse the system, but deter people and only invite those in who are really need the place, the refugees and things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Good
Or
call.
perhaps have the program where we have people that come into our country and immigrate here with the intention of building brands and businesses and putting money to work. Those are the type of countries that do the best, and country like Canada should have all of that. But what we shouldn't have are people abusing the situation, and they are. And that's why I've always called it out. I've never been afraid of it. I've never ever shied away from saying it. I know for a fact, talking to people, that every day foreign investors come in here and abuse the hell out of our real estate system. I got one this morning, an invite, actually a colleague in the commercial real estate space, who just posted on LinkedIn that he had got a new promotion to a brand new company. This company is dealing in primarily residential and hotel suites in Canada, and owns over 3,000 of them. And it's a private equity and private real estate wealth firm. And basically, they own houses and they're buying them up left and right. Well, what does that do for the rest of us? They can afford to do it because they treat it as an investment and have other tranches of income. For the average house owner, it means they can't figure it out, John. And you mentioned rent. Forget about it. I mean, you can't afford rent. I mean, look across the board. You can move to Timbuktu or Orillia, Ontario, and you're still paying $3,000 a month for a house.
That's crazy.
Which just 36 months ago, that same house would cost you $1,500, $1,600. I had a rental unit, which up until 2020, my rental unit was charging, including utilities, 1,250 square foot detached home in northern GTA, and I was only charging $1,500. And people told me I was crazy at the time, and I said, "Hey, I'm being profitable. I'm profitable at that point." But unfortunately, the tides are changing, and as such, John, we have to evaluate where we are, where we stand. And part of that is the ownership of gold and silver, physical gold and silver. It's getting more difficult, folks, to get and have inventory on hand. So you have to bear with us, because we are connected to every single major supplier that we can think of. And right now, allocation is the key theme, because demand is rising behind the scenes. Screw the paper price. I don't want buyers to think about the paper price. Suffice it to say, it's good for your buying side. But soon, very soon, there's going to be coming of age where even if 3 or 4% more of the population decide they want silver and gold, the paper markets cannot hold back the pricing anymore. There's already a wide divide on premiums. So even though the price on paper, let's say it's $26 an ounce on paper in Canadian dollar terms, most people are paying God knows what, 37, 38. We're selling coins at $37 a coin, right? Which is almost a $10 premium. The other day we had a supplier on the U.S. side, because American Eagles, the most frequent coin in the world, silver and gold coin in the world, those coins were in such high demand that they were willing to pay U.S. spot plus $10 to buy it back.
Come on.
Yes, plus $10 to buy it back from people, just to get a supply in, because demand is so rampant right now.
Wow.
So this is not impacting the paper price going forward right now, but it will. And we're very much on the precipice of seeing that occur. And it'll be the first time in my history of 18, 19 years of being in this business that this has occurred. No longer can we trust the paper markets to give us an accurate sense of what the value of an ounce of silver or gold is. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. The system is broken. It's been identified as such. It's been manipulated by big banks. Look it up. There's been hundreds of fines delved out, and that's going to keep going until the system breaks. And at that point, when it breaks, look out. The price of gold and silver will be so astronomically high that it'll make your buying at $19 an ounce or 26 Canadian an ounce look like a
bargain.
Such a bargain. Like you walked into the supermarket one day and all that salmon you love eating every week was a quarter the price, and you thought there was something wrong with it. It just turns out that day was your lucky day. This is exactly where we are right now, right? You got the chance to buy silver for less than a tank of gas. Right? I mean, God knows where we're going to be in 10 years with this inflation and with these problems we're having. It's coming. There is going to be a huge amount of harm done to our economy. When you look at articles like this with RBC's warning, it's a bank warning you that the losses are going to occur, and telling you that we expect net wealth to roll back. and falling asset prices to slow the Canadian economy, it's not going to be just real estate. It's going to be consumer spending that slows, which in turn is going to mean that there is less money being made corporately speaking. So corporate earnings are going to slow. And once that happens, the whole game is up. The stock markets will slow right down. And again, how deep the recession goes, it's anyone's guesses. But I think that right now, if you have disposable income on the side, you've got to get it into some physical gold and silver as part of your wealth strategy.
Always reaching out, guys, to begin that journey. 1-877-323-GOLD. Delta Harbour with a U online. That includes the website and Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all the different social media resources. Delta Harbour with a U to search it. Let's get into that, pal. We always get to the bottom half of the show and talk about exactly what are the options for people getting some of these physical metals into their portfolio as a hedge, or if they just want to go full bore and eat up as much as they can, right?
Well, they can start little, John. Just go to the e-store online, deltaharbor.com, harbor with a U, and they can just buy up some product. Take a look at what's available in silver. Take a look at what's available in gold. Ask questions if they need to. We have people standing by and responding and setting up accounts and things of that nature. And they can just go ahead, buy from the comfort of their home, make a payment online, and then have the product sent right to their door. The turnaround on that means that if you want to sell it back to us, we have to get it back in our hands. However, as part of our service, which is free of charge beyond the purchase that you make of the bullion, which is on the site, there are no additional fees there. If you take your bullion home with you and you need us to vet a local dealer to make sure you're getting a fair price when you go to sell, we do it free of charge. We do it all the time. Make sure that they're honest. Make sure that they're going to give you a good value. Let them know on our behalf that you're coming in there to sell your product. Or, of course, sell it back to Delta Harbour, give you a top dollar for that product. There is always the option of storing your product to keep things safe and to keep your product liquid. If it means the world to you that you can buy and sell by phone, we can put it in a vault. We have vault access in Alberta. We have vault access here in Toronto. That covers the spectrum of the country, near and far. And ultimately, you can have the choice of either. And you can see online all of the things involved in that. But again, it gives you peace of mind. It means that if you're going to put a sizable amount of your wealth, you don't have to worry about it being in the home uninsured. And cost of storage wise, that's your only ongoing cost. And it's going to be 1% or less with respect to the size that you put in there of the total metal value you're looking to store on a yearly basis. And they'll charge it to you on a monthly basis. So it's not overly costly to store product. And again, buying and selling by phone. If you like that idea of storing, maybe you've got room in your TFSA, maybe you got room in your RSP, maybe you're stressed right now thinking about what the hell your RSP or TFSA or LIF or RIF is doing at another institution. And maybe you're just a little bit stressed regarding what next year is going to do. Well, you have the option to move it. You don't always have to stay with the same people. There's always an option, right? You don't have to invoke any tax, nothing. You can keep it under the shelter of a TFSA or an RSP or a LIF or RIF, and you can bring it on over to Delta Harbour. We'll show you how to put it into physical gold and silver. You'll own those bars. You'll own those coins, whatever you decide to buy. You'll be able to keep them in storage, buy and sell by phone call. You'll have a portal online, a dashboard, if you will. And the best part about it all, if you still want to own some stocks, you still want to own some other assets, in these accounts, you'll be able to set up to do both. Physical ownership through Delta, and you can self-direct your paper assets from the comfort of your home. So that's an option as well. Another option would be to use the bulk bullion. If you're just a buyer who wants to get exposure to physical gold and silver and you don't want to pay these astronomically high premiums, we've done it for you. We take tons of silver, tons of gold, we put it into our vaults, and then we allow you to own whatever amount you want to own. And then if we need more, we go buy more. If we have some available, well, then we have some for down the road when somebody else comes along. But this is one-to-one. It's vetted, it's insured, it's reviewed quarterly to make sure that everything's counted for. And of course, it means you don't pay the high premiums. You pay a very small spread with respect to making a purchase. And again, you have the ability to see it online. Your portal dashboard is there. And the best thing of all, if you really get excited about gold and silver like we are, and you see what's going to be coming ahead, you can take that gold and silver that you've just put into your bulk bullion account, and you can use it as collateral to buy more product or to maybe just lend against it. Maybe you want some cash for some other type of investment. You can borrow against it if you need to. That's all an option in that bulk bullion account, again, on our website. And that's probably where I would suggest to start, John, either the number or their website. And that's how you get connected with Delta Harbour. You'll find that we have second to none customer service. We have people who are hired specifically as concierges to just handle your account and to help you migrate your way into gold and silver, and to stay with you on updates and to make sure that you're connected to this world of gold and silver, and that you're not just an afterthought like you are usually with banks and other types of financial institutions. So this is where you get plugged in, learn about the reality of the situation we're in, get yourself some gold and silver, and protect yourself against the changes that are coming. This is the time to do it. And as always, John, as we said earlier, now that we're at the end of this week's show, I want to encourage everyone, especially with the onset of cooler weather across the country, take care of the people in your communities right next to you, your neighbors, all of the people in your immediate family who are in your community. Get together, raise some money, bring some food to your local food bank, and take care of your local food banks. It's the most important thing to do to keep our country strong right now, to keep everyone fed, keep everybody off those streets, and keep everybody taken care of, because it is tough times coming ahead. And sometimes we got great pride here in this country. We don't want to admit it.
So, guys, explore the options like you just heard. It's a laundry list of ways to get physical metals into your portfolio. So give Darren a call, or Robert, or one of the other guys, the team. They're always ready to take care of you. How do you do it? You go to deltaharbor.com, Harbor with a U, and you can watch future podcasts and past ones as well on the website, and go to YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, or simply call to get it started, 1-877-323-GOLD, and get that part of your portfolio up and running with physical metals. Darren, awesome stuff, and we'll catch you next time, all of you, on the Hard Money Podcast. Have a great weekend.